Jennifer Romanowski, welcome to Seeking the Beyond Theology with Jono. It's such a pleasure to have you here with me today. Could you please introduce yourself for us?
Hi, John. Yes, my birth given name, as I say, you heard, is Jennifer Romanowski, but my universe given name is Sunshine. I go by Sunshine, the pink-haired sober witch.
Sunshine the Pink-Haired Sober Witch, I love it. Sunshine, could you please tell us how did your journey begin and did you experience a calling at any point?
My spiritual journey began, I think where a lot of children's do. My parents,
Hmm.
they made the determination to raise me as Catholic. And so I went to Catholic school for 13 years of my life, which meant a lot of church, all of the sacraments that you go through all the way, through your childhood and teenage years. And I can't say that there was ever a calling when I was younger, but there was definitely a detractor,
Oh,
right?
okay.
I was around the age of 11 years old. And right around that time, uh, I was in Girl Scouts, and in Girl Scouts, I was at a different parish than my own parish. And that parish started to allow girls to be altar girls to help
Hmm.
serve at Mass. And so I went to my parish pastor, the father, and I asked him, Father Kevin, I would really love to be an altar girl. And he said, no. And I said, what do you mean, no? And he said, not in my church. And I said, not in your church. And I walked away because I didn't understand. As 11 years old, I said, I thought this was
Mm,
God's house.
yeah.
I was like, how is this? So my calling was, that detraction from the Catholic Church to me is where my calling started to make me question and wonder what else was out there.
And that's a fascinating experience. I come from a Catholic background myself, and um, at one point I was seriously considering the priesthood, but as I was sort of did the discernment process, I realized, hey, there's something missing here. And it was the presence of women in the service of the church. So I totally understand that you didn't feel like you could fully participate in that environment, which led you to seek something else. Um, so after that experience, um, what happened next? What did you explore as a result of being told you couldn't be an altar girl?
Yeah, I think, I turned into a bit of a rebellious teenager in that
Hmm.
in that regards. I didn't really want to be participate, even though I had to in
Hmm.
church. And so when I started to explore, it was really what else was out there. And I remember I had friends that were Lutheran, and I'd went to Lutheran church, or other friends that were maybe Baptist, and went, just to see if there was something in that Christian faith that I was missing. Uh, but it wasn't until I was around 16 years old and I walked into the very first metaphysical store that was in my area for the
Yeah.
first time, and, got hit with this wave of Nag Champa and felt like I was at home for the first time.
Nag Champa. I haven't heard that word before. Can you tell me what it means?
Yeah, it's a incense. It's a very sweet and musky smelling incense.
Hmm.
Very particular. So if your listeners are familiar with it, they will smell it. It
Yeah.
is a very particular scent. And yeah, this metaphysics store had rows and rows of books on all sorts
Hmm.
of topics that I never would have found in any of the Catholic, libraries, any of the
Hmm.
libraries at school. And I just started to pick up books around the chakras, around, witchcraft, around anything I could really get my hands on at that particular point, and was just fascinated that there was something else out there.
Yes.
Fascinated that there was something else out there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I can imagine you sort of, walking through this shop and just looking at all these various things that you've never really been exposed to before. Do you remember, which books you bought or what happened following that experience, exploring these other ideas?
Yeah, there's a book, and I know I bought it because a friend had given it back to me about 2 years ago, and it had the receipt, the old credit card receipt where you like,
Yeah, the yeah.
yeah. And it was dated 1997. So I would have
Oh
been
wow.
17 years old. and it was The Wheel of Life. It's this really,
Hmm.
really, really thick book around the chakras. It's still to this day one of the most well-known books of the chakras. And yeah, that was one that was really big. I have a handful of them that I still have. Robert Buckland's book on witchcraft was another one. That one sat in my car for a really long time because I was afraid to take it in my house. Chakras, not so much, but the one about witchcraft was.
Hmm.
And the other thing in that store, nowadays it's talked about. There's a lot of myth around whether or not you should ever buy your own tarot deck. But I bought my very first tarot deck out of that store as well. Still have
Hmm.
it, and it's still one of the tarot decks that I read with on a daily, basis. Um, and that to me kind of started my exploration of trying to uncover answers to questions that I had no other way to answer.
Yeah, yeah. And I think I've certainly grappled with those big questions. And, when we search for those answers, we might find something completely unexpected. Um, I'm curious about that book you mentioned, The Wheel of Life, that talks about chakras. Could you give us just a brief overview of what chakra is and what that book talks about?
Yeah, I don't remember where it's a Sanskrit word that the word
Mm,
chakra comes from. But chakras are the belief that we have, in essence, energy centers throughout our entire body, right? And
hmm.
most people that when they're familiar are going to be familiar with the seven chakras, all the way from, the root to the crown, red all the way through the rainbow up to the violet in the crown. If you're going to do a deeper study, there's chakras almost associated with all the different meridian points. If you were talking about Chinese type of medicine, that there's
Hmm.
actual chakras related to all of the different meridian points. And there's even studies that there's chakras that go well above and beyond, up into the, ethers, so to speak. But it's these energy centers. So if we think about we ourselves as human beings are all made up of energy, it's these points within our own physical body that would kind of, pool or circulate or allow that energy to be able to influence those particular areas of our body, right? There's a chakra associated to our heart. So all of the
Hmm.
physical pieces within that particular area would be impacted by that heart chakra energetic.
Okay, interesting. And those meridian points, uh, just briefly, could you explain what that means as well?
Um, If you were to imagine the human body and removed, like took a look at it from all of a vascular, saw all of the veins and everything that were around, there are points within the body, like within Chinese medicine, that if you were to use acupuncture, right, take one
Hmm.
of the acupuncture needles, that it can help keep the energy moving, very similar to like in an area of like that vascular system. It's not the exact same, but that's the easiest way to kind of picture if you've ever seen a vascular
Yes.
system. And you can also use them as a pressure point, so touching on those points. So if you've ever, I know for me, I sometimes will get headaches every now and again, and I'll,
Hmm.
no clue, but I'll push these certain points on my forehead, and those are actual pressure points within those places that help to release that energy and allow it to move.
Hmm.
So very similar chakras, the different meridians from that perspective, all around the concept that we ourselves, even though we're made of organic matter, we're also made of energy, right? I mean, we literally have a
Yeah.
temperature,
Yeah.
98.7 degrees. Well, that's Fahrenheit. I don't know about Celsius, what it normally is.
36 point
um
something.
yeah, but that's energy, right? If we
Yeah,
have a temperature, that's energy that's actually, running, so to speak.
absolutely. And I think, as living beings, we consume energy, we experience it, and we do have definitely a connection uh, to the things around us in some way. So you've been to this bookstore, you've started exploring these new ideas. Can you think of a time when your beliefs were seriously challenged by something.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that answer to come up. I got the question and I pondered it before. My ex-husband,
Hmm.
I didn't get married until I was 30. And it was after we got married. And I remember very distinctly this time that we were heading down to, we lived like about 800 miles from where his parents lived, and we were heading to where his parents were living in the car. And we got to talking, and somehow or another, I brought up the topic of witchcraft and a witch, and he started to make fun of me. He
Mm.
started to like kind of ridicule me for it. And I remember these like waves of shame coming over
Wow.
me
Hmm.
and, feeling like I could no longer be who I really knew I was around him
Mm.
anymore. It wasn't just that like my faith being challenged, it was like who I was being challenged in that
Yeah.
moment. Um, and from that point forward, I didn't, I shut down a lot of my practices.
Hmm.
I refused to talk to him about it anymore at all anymore, and you know, lost touch with my own kind of the own side of my spirit for a long time.
And I think that's a relatable experience for many of us when we have spiritual beliefs, whether that's religious or otherwise, and someone important to us says, "No, no, no, this is stupid. You shouldn't believe that." Um, and it's difficult, you know. We want to that relationship obviously matters to us, and you know we weren't experiencing the support that we might have hoped for. So absolutely, I can see how that was seriously challenging for you.
Yeah, it was challenging, and just it took me a long time to realize how much that impacted me. It took me a really long time to realize how much. And it's not so much that his opinion of me mattered. I think there was this portion of me that he was able to rock me so hard with
Mm,
those that sentiment. And that is what it was. It was also just this he was that wasn't the only thing that he ridiculed me about. So there was a
mm.
lot more of that. But yeah, it was I didn't know that he was slowly chipping away at who I was. And that was one of the ways that he did it, was by attack my spiritual beliefs.
Can you think, Sunshine, of an episode or an event in your life where your spiritual beliefs carried you through?
I mean, today it's in my recovery.
Yeah.
I celebrated this past October 5 years in recovery from alcoholism. And I
Mm.
actually say I'm a recovering alcoholic, workaholic, perfectionist, and control freak. So I'm in recovery from all of those things. And
Yeah.
yeah, my spiritual beliefs, my faith is what is continuing to carry me through today. The fact that I now stand very strong in what I believe and what is important to me. And pray every single day, uh, because I'm very grateful and blessed that my spirituality, my faith has gotten me as far as I can. Because I watched, prior to me stepping into recovery, I watched my father almost pass away
Mm.
from alcoholism, and one of the main reasons that I started to address my relationship with alcohol is because I had a cousin who was around 9 months younger than me, um, lost his life to alcoholism.
Wow. Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a powerful and important message of the connection between spirituality, faith, and recovery. I myself struggled with drugs in my younger 20s, um, and holding on to the hope that there was something more that I could uh, maybe not latch on to, but to follow and to lead me to a better place. Could you just, explain in a little bit more detail the relationship of that sort of recovery story to your beliefs?
Ah, yeah, I I think one of the easiest ways to explain that is,
Mm,
I pray every single morning, and it's the same prayer, and it has been for pretty much 5 years.
yep.
I start off by thanking, all of the gods, the goddesses, my ancestors, all the angels that surround me. I thank them for guiding me, protecting me, and taking me down a path in life that leads me to a better life. Right?
Mm.
And I pray that they continue to do that today and allow me to remain in the passenger seat, let go of all control, and just sit back and enjoy life and allow them to guide me and take me where I need to go. That's the connect. That is what keeps me in recovery, is
Yeah.
having the faith that I'm not alone, that I have, my guides, my ancestors, the angel, like anyone, any, etheric or spiritual being that wants to make itself known to me. They are there to help me and to guide me and to protect me. And I just wouldn't. I would not be this far along in my recovery experiencing joy in life, right? I say, lead me to a path that leads to more peace, love, happiness, hope, joy, and prosperity, right? I want a lovely, wonderful, enriched life. I want to have a life that's worth living.
And that's such a beautiful prayer that these forces will guide you to a better life. Sunshine, is there a person who guided you or acted as a mentor on your spiritual journey?
I don't have any one particular, but I do have a book
Mm,
that, made an impact on me when I was a lot younger that I still to this day have probably if I've probably purchased this book for well over 25 people throughout my adult life because that's how
mm,
impactful. And that was the author's name's Don Miguel Ruiz, and his book The Four Agreements.
the
Right. So
four
I don't know
agreements.
him personally to say that he was a mentor, but these four agreements, things like don't take things personal, that's
Yeah.
like a big thing, have just led me and guided me throughout much of my adult life. Um, that I don't know that my experience in life would have been the same if I had never found that book in my 20s, right? Because there
Can you
was
tell
some,
us? Sorry,
yeah,
could you tell us about the four agreements?
yeah, I'll pull them up again because quoting them, as much as I live them now, so every time people ask me about them, I'm always like, be
Mm,
impeccable with your word, right? So speak with integrity. Always
hmm.
speak the truth is one of them. Like say
Yeah.
what you mean what you say. Not taking anything personally, right? The things and the experiences that happen to us when they happen to us, if somebody is mad or angry or upset, right? Or they cut you off, right? This is a big one. Like I don't get road rage when I'm driving because
Yeah.
when I see someone cutting me off, I say a prayer for them.
Yeah.
What might their day be like if they're not paying attention, if they're rushing, if they're moving, like who knows what they're trying to get to or get away
Mm.
from, so to speak. Um, don't make assumptions
Yep.
is
Good
an
one.
is the third agreement. Don't make assumptions. Don't assume that ask. And the last is always do your best. And I love always do your best because I also like the concept of always think other people are doing their best,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And just these four really simple. He has a couple of other books that I've read throughout my life too that he just speaks so beautifully about these really, really simple but powerful concepts.
Yeah.
And they've played a big role in my life. And I love to share his work with other people because I just do think they're very powerful and simple to read. Simple
Yeah.
to read.
And I think that is such great wisdom. You know, don't make assumptions, don't take things personally, and you know that example you gave, someone cutting you off in traffic. You know, that might just be an honest mistake, which we might occasionally make on the road. Don't let it get under your skin. Don't let it turn you into an angry monster, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
having, yeah, and having simple principles like that that we can keep in mind and sort of implement easily, I think that's wonderful to have that sort of practice in our lives. Um, Sunshine, we talked about this a bit before the interview portion, but is there a favorite spiritual quote that inspires you?
Yes, one that I have loved for a really long time is by Pema Chodron, and this is only when we know our own darkness can we sit in the darkness with others.
Hmm.
And this it speaks a lot to my work, but it speaks to this, you know, not shying away from the difficult things that are in life and knowing that they're just part of life, right? But they don't
Hmm.
have to define you. They don't have to be the end, right? And then sometimes, uh, you know, we need someone else to be there for us, right? So the
Mm.
quote talks about, being able to sit in the dark with others, but it also means, without saying it, that when you're in the darkness, somebody may be able to sit with you.
Yeah.
You don't have to do it alone.
And I think that's such a profound message, which is certainly something I've experienced. All of us at some point in our journeys will experience darkness. It's part of the process. Um, and learning to just be with it and to understand it, I think is just such an important maybe skill or experience. And you said it was part of your work. Can you tell us a little bit more about this work and how you sit with other people in their darkness?
As a recovering alcoholic,
Mm,
as a child of an alcoholic,
yeah.
and an adult child of an alcoholic, and as an individual who has loved and lost people to addiction,
Hmm.
I sit with other people that are having those experiences, who are
Yeah.
struggling themselves with addiction, right? Who are struggling themselves with the codependency that we sometimes find when we have a loved one in our life that is an addict, right?
Hmm.
Or with the people that are the adult children of alcoholics or addicts and are dealing still with the trauma and the experiences that come from growing up in a household where that was
Yeah.
present. Yeah. That's my work. That's my purpose, is to be in this space and to be able to help people so that they know that they are not alone and they don't have to traverse it alone either.
Absolutely. And I think that's so important that the darkness can feel very, very lonely. But having someone there with you is just uh, so important. Um, could you tell me just a little bit more about that work? I'm sure you can't reveal specific details about clients, but in a general sense, could you tell us a little bit about how you support people with addiction and other issues?
Uh, I identify as a witch, so the big way that I help support individuals is by sharing that publicly and
Hmm.
openingly. And so I've created tools. I do lead a weekly recovery circle for witches. So
Hmm.
we engage in um, kind of the witchy ways and using tarot and divination to explore the shadows that we need to explore for the week.
Hmm.
I built the first ever mobile app for witches in recovery.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so there's a mobile app with a bunch of resources, including, how to look at it, how to understand, energetic and, acceptance and what it looks like when you do step into recovery. So I have a lot of tools and a lot of resources that are available, but I think most important, I'm committed to never turning anyone away that asks for
Yeah,
help.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm a software guy, I can't resist. Can you tell us a little bit more about the app and the development process and how you got this to market?
Yeah, so I am not a developer myself.
Yep.
I am a lifelong I'm a formerly trained software product manager.
Yeah.
And there is a really lovely piece of software that will help you build mobile applications, and the company not only helps you build them, will actually help you get them into market. And so it's available on Android, on iOS. Um, and it took me Probably about 2.5 months to build, but
Hmm.
about 3 months to get into both of the stores.
Yeah,
Because that is a
hoops to
little
jump
bit more
through.
of a yeah, a little bit more challenging of a process than it's a beautiful thing because I literally now people have a mobile app, they can have this in their hands and they can stay away from social media. So many of us addicts
Yeah.
have a social media addiction too. And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
people are not, they don't have to be stuck into those social media platforms. That's a really big deal for me as well,
Yeah.
right? Still being able to have that support without having them to be bombarded by another addiction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you mentioned you identify as a witch. Could you just tell us a little bit more about what that means to you? You told me the four, or was it the three, requirements of being
Yeah.
a witch.
Yeah. And this to me, the way I describe this is a philosophy, my philosophy
Hmm.
of
A
the witch.
philosophy.
And, the first thing is the belief and the use of psychic powers, right?
Hmm.
So believing that we have more than just the five senses and that we connect to use those beyond the five senses in order to be able to connect to the divine, to messages, to the universe, to energy, to whatever it is. That is the one pillar, so to speak. The second one is the belief in the use and the practice of magic, right? So knowing
Hmm.
and understanding that every single one of us are made up of energy, everything around us is made up of energy, and we have the ability to shape shift and move that energetic in order to bring about changes within the world around us and even within us. And
Hmm.
that third pillar, and this is the one that some people may argue with, I believe my philosophy of a witch is that a witch is here to be of service of the world,
Hmm.
right? That we have a purpose, that we are here to serve, to help, to heal, in whatever way, shape, or form. Some people do it literally into their community. Other people are just the individual that's healing and helping their family, right? The mom that's always cooking the chicken noodle
Yeah.
soup and making sure that
Yeah.
everybody's taken care of,
Yeah.
right? But to be of service. Mhm.
And could you go on a little bit more about your how you apply this to your work with addiction and recovery, and how you help your clients?
Oh, well, if we think about it from that first pillar, number one,
Mm,
my own gifts. I'm a professional psychic medium as well.
mm,
And so people can sit and talk with me and find out various triggers and ways that they may be tripped up in their own addiction recovery.
yes.
That's one of them, helping them see and identify how to stay on their path of recovery.
Hmm.
Another piece is going into past life, right? And finding past lives or things that energetically are influencing their addiction here today. I'm a certified Reiki master as well, and so we can go in and remove energetics. Both the witch side of me and the healer will actually remove energetics off of people and provide the healing back down in order to allow people to be able to release addiction and heal anything that may ail them from that perspective. Um, and that is like on a kind of on that one-to-one, but the bigger portion is helping people understand that they have this witch inside of them, that they can do all of these things
Hmm.
themselves. They can use the tarot cards, they can use the divination, they can use their own psychic abilities to remain connected to their higher selves, their higher powers, their ancestors, their guides. They can use magic to go in and uncover and to heal and to do these things that
Yeah.
bring about beauty into their life. And the third piece, and you know, being of service, helping others
Hmm.
in a healthy way,
Yes.
right? Not in the codependent, people-pleasing way, but in a healthy way. I don't know anybody that would argue that being of service is some of the most healing work that we can actually do, right? It gives us purpose, it gives us meaning, and it gives us something to feel very proud about. Because we are able to help. So those three things, showing people how they can actually do that and helping them set the foundation in their own life to do that. mm, Yeah, I feel very blessed to be able to.
That's amazing, and I think it's so important to have addiction and recovery specialists who have walked the path, who have been through the darkness, and who have emerged from it, and helping people to understand that they do have something inside themselves that connects us to each other, connects us to the world, connects us to the divine, and exploring that and awakening it, um, and having the awareness that you know despite the suffering, we can journey to a better place, and it's fantastic to have people to sort of guide us on that journey. Um, Finally, Sunshine, what spiritual insights have you gained from your journey that you'd like to share with us?
Hmm. You know, I've been asked a question very similar a handful of times, and
Mhm.
the same answer pops up every time, right? And I think one of the biggest things that I've learned in my own spiritual journey that I like to share with others is every single day, every minute, every hour, every day when we wake up, however you want to look at it, we always have a choice.
Yeah, we
We
always have a
always have a
choice.
choice. Yeah. Yep. And that to me is all that matters. And even if you aren't happy with the choice you made today, guess what? Tomorrow morning, you get to make another choice,
Yeah,
right? So you get to learn, you get to experiment, you get to choose what's right for you. And that's been a really big part of my own spiritual journey, and part of what I try to help other people understand, right? You get to choose.
absolutely. And I think there's immense power in being aware of that, that we have free will and we can use it. And we won't get it right every time, but we do get new opportunities to make new choices. Uh,
So you do.
where can our listeners find you online, Sunshine?
I'm all over the place.
Hmm.
The website you can always visit sunshinereadings.com or illuminateunschool.com. Those
Hmm.
are two of the best places. You can also reach me at sunshine@sunshinereadings.com. That's my
Hmm.
personal email. And I always love to have people actually email me because it's my favorite way to communicate because I can take some time and, spend some energy. I'm on Facebook too, Instagram, YouTube. If you search for Illuminate, Sunshine Readings, or even Sober Witch Life, you're going to find me. Yeah.
Fantastic. Jennifer Romanowski, thank you so much for speaking with us today on Seeking the Beyond.
Thank you, John. It was a pleasure.